morning year one and welcome to Friday's Literacy. Now we have had such a fantastic half term and you've been working so hard that I thought your brains might be a little bit exhausted today. So I thought we'd have a fun Friday and I'm going to read you a story for our literacy lesson today, and then there's going to be a little challenge at the end as a little extension, okay? So I want you to sit yourself down, be nice and comfy and listen up. I'm going to read one of my favourite stories. It's called The Smartest Giant in Town and it's written by Julia Donaldson. Are you sitting comfortably? Off we go. George was a giant, the scruffiest giant in town. He always wore the same pair of old brown sandals and the same old patched gown. "I wish I wasn't the scruffiest giant in town," he said sadly. But one day, George noticed a new shop. It was full of smart clothes. It had a smart shirt, a smart pair of trousers, a smart belt, a smart stripy tie, some smart socks with diamonds up the sides, and a pair of smart shiny shoes. "Now I'm the smartest giant in town," he said proudly. George left his old clothes behind in the shop and he was about to go home when he heard a sound. On the pavement stood a giraffe who was sniffing sadly. "What's the matter?" asked George. "It's my neck," said the giraffe. "It's so very long and so very cold. I wish I had a long warm scarf." "Cheer up," said George, and he took off his stripy tie. "It didn't match my socks anyway," he said, and he wound it all the way round and round the giraffe's neck, and it made a wonderful scarf. "Thank you," said the giraffe. As George strode towards home, he sang to himself, "My tie is a scarf for a cold giraffe, but look me up and down, I'm the smartest giant in town." Still very smart, isn't he? George came to a river. On a boat stood a goat who was bleating loudly. What does bleating mean? Do you know? It's like a little cry. "What's the matter?" asked George. "It's my sail," said the goat. "It blew away in the storm. I wish I had a strong new sail for my boat." "Cheer up," said George, and he took off his new white shirt. It kept coming untucked anyway, he said, and he tied it to the mast of the goat's boat. It made a magnificent sail. "Thank you," said the goat. George strode on singing to himself, "My tie is a scarf for a cold giraffe, my shirt's on a boat as a sail for a goat, but look me up and down, I'm the smartest giant in town." Very smart. George came to a tiny ruined house. Beside the house stood a white mouse with lots of baby mice. Can you see them? They were all squeaking. "What's the matter?" asked George. "It's our house," squeaked the mother mouse. "It burned down and now we have nowhere to live. I wish we had a nice new house." Do you think George can help them? What can he do to help? Look, what has George done? "Cheer up," said George, and he took off his shiny shoe. "It was giving me blisters anyway," he said. As the mouse and her babies all scrambled inside, the shoe made a perfect home for them. "Thank you," they all squeaked. George had to hop along the road now. He got no shoe. He's hopping down. And as he hopped, he sang to himself. Can you join in? My tie is a scarf for a cold giraffe. My shirt's on a boat as a sail for a goat. My shoe is a house for a little white mouse. But look me up and down, I'm the smartest giant in town. George came to a campsite. Beside a tent stood a fox who was crying. What's the matter? asked George. It's my sleeping bag, said the fox. I've dropped it in a puddle. I wish I had a warm, dry sleeping bag. Dear. Oh dear. Very sad. Cheer up, said George. And he took off one of his socks with diamonds up the sides. It was tickling my toes anyway, he said, as the fox snuggled up inside. It made a very fine sleeping bag. Thank you, said the fox. George hopped on, singing to himself. What's he going to sing? My tie is a scarf for a cold giraffe. My shirt's on a boat as a sail for a goat. My shoe is a house for a little white mouse. My sock is a bed for a fox. One of my socks is a bed for a fox. But look me up and down, I'm the smartest giant in town. All the way home hopping with one shoe and one sock, George came to a big squelchy bog. Beside the bog stood a dog who was howling. What's the matter? asked George. It's this bog, said the dog. I need to get across, but I keep getting stuck in the mud. I wish there was a safe, dry path. This poor dog is trying to walk through the boggy water and he just keeps getting stuck. I wonder if George can help. He's helped everybody else, hasn't he? Cheer up, said George, and he took off his smart new belt. It was squishing my tummy anyway, he said, as he laid it down over the bog. It made an excellent path. Thank you, said the dog. The wind started to blow, but George didn't mind, and he hopped on, singing to himself. My tie is a scarf for a cold giraffe. My shirt's on a boat as a sail for a goat. My shoe is a house for a little white mouse. One of my socks is a bed for a fox. My belt helped a dog who was crossing a bog, but what's the next bit of the song? Oh, goodness. My trousers are falling down. I'm the coldest giant in town. Oh no, why have his trousers fallen down? What did he do with his belt? He's given all of his clothes away, hasn't he? Suddenly, George started to feel very sad and shivery and not at all that smart. He stood on his one foot and he thought, I'll have to go back to the shop and buy some more clothes, he decided. He turned around and he hopped all the way back to the shop. But when he got there, it was closed. Oh no, cried George, and he sank down onto the doorstep and a tear ran down his nose. He felt as sad as all of the animals that he'd met on his way home. Then, out of the corner of his eye, he saw a bag with something familiar poking out of the top. George took a closer look. What was here? My gown, he yelled. My dear old gown and sandals. George put them on and they felt wonderfully comfortable. "I'm the cosiest giant in town," he cried, and he danced back home all along the road. Outside of his front door stood all of the animals that he had helped. They were carrying an enormous present. "Come on, George," they said, "open it up." George untied the ribbon, and inside was a beautiful gold paper crown and a card. "Look inside the card, George," said the animals. George put the crown on his head and he opened the card. Inside it said, "Your tie is a scarf for a cold giraffe. Your shirt on a boat as a sail for a goat. Your shoe is a house for a little white mouse. One of your socks is a bed for a fox. Your belt helped a dog who was crossing a bog. So here is a very fine crown to go with the sandals and gown of the kindest giant in town." So George went from being the smartest giant in town to the cosiest giant in town. And what do all of George's friends think he is? They think he is the kindest giant in town. Why is he the kindest giant in town? What did he do? He gave all of his things away to help all of his friends, didn't he? Okay? And I think George is a super friend. He is a lovely giant, okay? Now, if you enjoyed that story, I've got another little activity that I would love for you to do. So, I would like you to find a piece of paper or on your whiteboard and draw me a little section from the story that you really liked. So I've done here the smartest giant in town, and I've drawn George stuck by helping the dog cross the bog. And you could even write some sentences along the bottom to say the dog was stuck in a bog. So the dog was stuck in a bog. And a full stop at the end. But you could do a different page if you wanted, or if you would like, you could do a different story. You could have a story with your grown-up and draw me a picture from your favourite story at home and write me a sentence. You could even write me a couple of sentences. I'd be really impressed if you could write me 2 or 3 sentences and colour your picture in and send the pictures in to me. Okay, so that is your activity for today, and then you can have a half-term break, okay? So have a lovely half-term, and I can't wait to see you when we all come back. Take care.